I was too nervous to tell Azale about our podcast. I was like, "Hey, buddy, check out our
Yeah,
podcast."
you failed, League Dad.
Hey,
No, he
next
was
time
our
maybe
in.
if I go to New Jersey for the summer split, I'll just make a hat that says All in
Yeah,
Podcast, and then I'll get pros and everybody to sign it. Then we'd be like,
yeah,
"What's the All in Podcast?" Be like, "Glad you asked,
yeah,
man. It's the
yeah,
best
yeah.
podcast around."
And if they don't join the Discord, you kidnap them and make them join it. You
Right.
take their phone,
Exactly.
join it.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
clip that and let's put
Oh
that as the
no.
intro.
Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I'm the League Dad, and today I'm joined by Kevin and Mitchell. Unfortunately, Alistair is not here. We haven't heard from him. I think since finals, he's probably just gone off, and he's like, no more anything.
Yeah, he lost the All In, so he's dead now.
That's right. He was close, though. He was very close
He was
to getting
very
that
close.
All In.
Really close.
Like,
Yeah, and
Jesus.
I think he would probably even surprised himself. But I was there live. I think you guys know that. Alistair was there live. It was, for me personally, like just an amazing event. And I mentioned this on Discord. It's like, it's funny because as toxic as a community League is known for, like in games, whenever I go to these events, like people are just the nicest. Like we're here and we're like talking about League, we're talking about our favorite teams, talking about who we think should win, who's better, who's not, and just meeting all like the, content creators and the personalities. Like it's always such a good time every time I go. So I think it's kind of ironic that those two disparities exist within the League community. But I know I had a ton of favorite moments. You guys saw the pictures I was posting, but I wanted to start off real quick because it was such a banger finals. Let me get your, initial impressions, or like maybe your favorite finals moment, or any takeaways that you might have from this past weekend.
My takeaways are like that for a new team to the finals, they didn't flop. Like they showed up, played their at least for the first two games, but I would say in overall they tried their best, right? Maybe ran out of steam toward the end, but like that is something that a lot of these finals we've had in times ago, like from 2020 to 2021 especially, like they were just kind of soulless. Maybe it felt like we just usually it was a stomp or it wasn't that competitive back and forth in my memory. And then last year and this year, I feel like there's been more of a level up. There's more competition, and so I'm really happy that this finals was also like that, especially because like God knows it could have just been a 3-0 sweep, and then we would just have a bad taste in our mouth, right? But it
Yeah.
wasn't. So I'm very happy that GGS showed up for their first finals. Some of these people haven't been in a finals in years, so I'm very happy that they could show off their skills. And C9 was definitely the better team.
Yeah, it was really, really awesome because game one started for the finals, and like it just immediately we didn't know who was gonna win. Like GGS was full stomping them like really hard. And they did actually end up throwing it in the game
Yeah.
one. But still, like when you see a game like that where it's like the early game is so favored for GGS and then C9 comes back and wins, like it gives you a good feeling for both teams because
Mm-hmm.
it's unexpected for GGS to do so well in the early game against such a good team because Cloud9 has a great early game also. And then it's great for Cloud9 that they didn't lose their mental and were able to come back and show that they're the better team. So that is a good feeling, I think, for the viewer. On top of that, I think like honestly, GGS like they weren't they didn't seem like they were just like the worst team to Cloud9 necessarily. It did feel like they shot themselves in the foot kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to like call back to River game one. They're super ahead. I think they lost like that first fight around Baron topside, right? Where um it was like a really close fight, and then it was actually the Olaf from Fudge that
Yeah.
got a bunch of kills, super low health, like everything was super tense, super close. Um I did feel like River is like the linchpin of this team. Like he kind of like threw a Sejuani ult while doing Raptors, and like it was like awkward, and they had to give drag and stuff. So like I feel bad for him that it was a bit of like a choking situation, I guess. But also like it kind of shows that this team was like kind of built around River, right? Like he
Mm-hmm.
was their carry, even though he's like playing Sejuani or Maokai or whatever. Like he was the carry. So I hope people aren't too harsh on him maybe choking and then realizing that like he's kind of the reason why they got here, right? You remember last year? It's like get River a team, like he's like on like switching from Dignitas to Golden Guardians, like playing J4, trying to carry these like 4 dead corpses. They almost make it through the lower bracket last year in summer, and he gets a good team and he makes it to finals. Like he's 2 games away from winning the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then like it's just amazing to watch. So
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah.
I think one thing that I saw and really learned was that, man, momentum makes a huge difference, even within a series. And also, like, maybe the mental fortitude or mental boom on the opposite spectrum, right? Because let's revisit a little bit their journey to get there, because they played FlyQuest, which, again, I know a lot of us predicted Golden Guardians to win. FlyQuest, you know, I know, Kevin, you were thinking they were going to win. And honestly, on paper, FlyQuest looks like the team that should, quote unquote, win. And by all accounts, it looked like they were going to take that series. Again, game 4 was like, I was like, oh man, the dream is over. Like it's done. But in a crazy team fight, you know, Golden Guardians comes back. They end up taking that win. And I said it to everybody around me. Right after that, I was like, you know what? I think they're going to win game 5, just because I think FlyQuest doesn't have the mental fortitude, other than maybe Impact and possibly Spica, to really bounce back into game 5 and not let that game 4 throw like shake them. And sure enough, it was pretty much a stomp from Golden Guardians from that point on. And, you know, taking that into the game 1 series into Cloud9, you know, Golden Guardians, again, coming out hot, and then losing like a 9K lead and then going down. Like, to me, I really thought it would be over, but then they bounced back game 2, so that was good from them. But I really thought that may have had an impact on just mental, and then also just like thinking, man, we had this team in the books and they still beat us. Like, that's a tough thing to kind of wrap your head around. But going back to the FlyQuest series, let's pick some points on there, because there were a lot of interesting things, like the J4 support. Come on, Huhi, right? Like, we had some really interesting picks. Honestly, I really liked it when Golden Guardians picked drafts that were really just wombo combos, easy to set up kind of things. We knew their early game was good, but to me, their objective setup was horrible. And I felt like in game 2, when they picked Kennen, Wukong, Lissandra, J4, right? Like, that's just easy to execute. You just press your R buttons and it's just locked down the champions. And I felt like every time they picked a comp that kind of centered around that, where they could just wombo combo, set up easy to execute team fights, they were in a better position to win. But talk a little bit about that series real quick. Any details that you wanted to mention? Because that was an amazing comeback win to get them into the finals.
Yeah, I think the detail I wanted to focus on is that Licorice just was a standout player. He played incredibly well. Individually, his Fiora, like, pretty much solo won some of those fights, especially in game 5.
Yeah.
He also did well in game.
FlyQuest. Yeah.
Yep. And in game 1, he also did really well, even though they lost that game. He was like, actually, it felt like he was fighting his team. He was like, guys, come on, this is a losers finals. This is a really important match. I've been here. We can do this. So I was really impressed by him. Honestly, the other thing I had as a takeaway is, like, while I expected Spica to be good in this situation, I felt like he was underperforming. I felt like, compared to what I expected, like, I'm not saying the others didn't underperform. I'm saying compared to what I expected, I thought Spica would have the form here, and he would at least, like, be able to, you know, show up versus River. But no, he didn't. And, like, honestly, part of that is Spica probably just hasn't been at a high level competition in a while. Like, that's the fact, right? The other part, though, and this is part of my theory, is that when River's on, he is the best jungler in our league. I would say over closer, over like, you know, peak closer, not this year. Over Spica, who's another top contender, even over Blabber's average. I think that River's average is higher. If he was an NA born player who had been here for a couple of years, this guy would be like the Bjergsen jungle, like, in terms of how he's performed in his first 2 splits. He was on a crap ass team, and he actually made them like actually look like they had a pulse. The second you gave him, like, not even top tier players, you gave him like tier 1.5, tier 2 washed up players, he makes them look good again. Like, that's just the fact, right? So how good do you have to be as a jungler when you have Licorice, who was anemic for the whole season and they won 7 in a row? Like, that is insanity. If anyone's ever played jungle, that is so hard. So honestly, just if we didn't consider that he's a Korean player who played in LMS for a while, or it's like the Taiwanese region, like, if he was just someone that was like from, I don't know, Australia or NA, like a native talent, we would definitely rate him higher, because, like, he just kind of flew under the radar. We would say, oh, he's good or he's carrying, but we wouldn't, for some reason, he was not even in the top 2 conversation until now for the mainstream, right? So honestly, I'm really impressed by him. yes, his finals was a little disappointing, but like you've been carrying for over like
Yeah.
a whole year now
Uh-huh.
consecutively, so it's okay for me. And I also think that after watching other finals in other regions like LCK or even just playoffs in LEC, it's just a different beast. Like teams, that's where you really know the form of a player, and that's like why Impact and players like that have made so much money and so
Mm-hmm.
much of their legacy is hinged off of that, not their regular season performance.
Yeah, I mean, River is a legend. Like he was on a PhD Talent and
Mm-hmm.
AHQ and stuff like that.
Yep.
Way back in the day, like going to international events and smurfing on people. I remember there was like it was like the MSI or the Worlds after COVID, and he had like a bunch of visa issues, right? And PSG Talon, they were doing pretty good, but they were waiting for like their two subs, like River and Maple, I believe.
Yeah.
And then they showed up and they just started smurfing on kids, like no scrim time, no prep, like just come off a plane, jet lagged, and start smurfing on kids. So like River has kind of done it a lot of stuff that I think like maybe the common viewer wouldn't know is that this guy does stuff internationally too. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty excited for him to go to MSI. I'm excited for this team to go to MSI. Stixay and Huhi, like their return, it's been since 2016 since they made an international event together. Uh, since they made MSI, I mean, they just haven't made MSI at all. Um, and then Huhi, I think he definitely deserves some conversation. This is his
Mm-hmm.
fourth
Yeah.
final in a row that he's made. He's only won one of them, but he made four in a row, which is insane. I think this guy is crazy. We had an episode in like the middle of the split where we were talking about all these guys, and we're kind of saying a lot of the same stuff we were saying back then. Um, and the reason why we haven't talked about them is because like they had such a terrible downward dip, and then they came all the way back up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean the DRX like comparisons are just out of this world. Like
Yeah.
the fact that Beryl has made 3 world finals in a row and who he's made 4 like finals in a row, like on multiple teams. Um, like River is like making a great comeback, and then Licorice is making a great comeback. Like this is like just a bunch of like yeah, like as Kevin's saying, like tier 2, like
Yeah.
washed up like boomer team. Um, but they made really far, and you know what? It's just Faker was right. You know, LCS is the hardest region, okay? Like, yeah, DRX,
Yeah.
they make it to World Finals, and that's exciting and stuff. It's an underdog story. But LCS Finals, like, that's where it's, like, really hard, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, good for this team.
So I wanted to add in too, like, I mean, when Faker does it, he goes to 4 finals in a row and wins one, and he's one of the best of all time. So, maybe who he needs to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, like there aren't a lot of supports that have that level of consistency because when you're behind or on a bad team, as a support, you're the main engaged tool oftentimes, or you have to do a lot. You're like the sacrificial lamb for vision. You got to go face first for a lot of stuff. So like you're just gonna look like shit. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, Huki's overall average has been really good for a long time. I think if he didn't start as a mid laner and like a mid laner that was kind of memed on for being like the Kuro or like the very weak side mid laner, if that even makes any sense. Basically,
Yeah.
just a losing mid laner who was really good at team fighting and roaming. I think he probably would have had a better rep, but he's gotten better and better. He had one bad year, I would say, and then he's done really well with his current duo with Stixay. So if he's making Stixay look good when Stixay was literally put on coaching duty last year, I
Yeah.
think he's legit, right? Like Core
Mm-hmm.
JJ couldn't do that with his recent rookies, and that at the very least, that's just two Korean Korean players compared to each other, apples to apples. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he deserves more respect if he if he could just be more consistent when it really matters, like tie the knot and like be that like game winner. I think that's when he solidifies his legacy.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's always going to be the conversation of Vulcan, Core JJ, and recently Sven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about Cloud9 and move to that series a little bit because it was, for all intents and purposes, it was tied 1-1, even though, Golden Guardians should have probably won game 1. That might look like a different story. They win game 1, game 2, then C9's really put on the back burner. I mean, we obviously saw the resolve of Cloud9. It was really great. But let's talk about some details there. Obviously, Sven picking Thresh. I'm glad he admitted that his play was not great, because we had seen him on a whole bunch of different support champions, and for the most part, he had done pretty well, but we hadn't seen a lot of his Thresh. And I told the person beside me, I was like, hey, I want to see how Sven does on Thresh, because this is a champ that you have to be good at to really make that champ shine, and it was not good, and he admitted that. So but to me, like, I think the X factor, okay, game 4 they let Emenes get his LeBlanc. Game 5 they did not ban it out, and for me, that was when I saw it picked. For me personally, I don't think that's obviously not the only thing that lost him the game, but I feel like that champ needed to be banned. He made such an impact in game 4, among other things, that the team was doing well. But I thought that letting him have his comfort champ, one that he's just really a smurf with, was a big blunder by Golden Guardians, especially because they did pick kind of a team wombo combo comp. They had Malphite, Wukong, Galio. But then how are you really going to get on anybody when they have Olaf, Zaya, who can just press R, and LeBlanc, who can just move away from anything? So you couldn't really actually execute the comp the way it's supposed to be run. So let's talk a little bit about that details, and then kind of lead into Cloud9, their performance, and what you see in them in MSI, and how they might, compete in there.
Yep. I'm glad that Sven learned that he can't play Thresh on stage. That's good, because if he did that at MSI, I'd be mad. But it was fine. He just doesn't have the thousands of reps that every support main ever since season 3, when Thresh came out, has. Other than that, I think the game 4 draft, I think Golden Guardians just ran out of steam. Like, I think they picked the single threat comp, and the single threat was Lucian. Like, I don't understand that. I think that Gory is one of their better players, and on average, like, he should not be on Galio duty on that important game. Like, don't, please. Actually, if you think your players are good, put them on something that's less passive, or at least have a hyper carry, right? Lucian's not bad late, but he's not that good comparatively to, like, the more powerful characters like Zeri was up, for example. So there's that. I think that Cloud9 showed a lot of resilience in terms of their ability to come back in that series. I was really impressed that they just didn't give up that game 1, and then once they lost game 2 pretty emphatically, like, honestly, they got kind of clapped. They clapped back harder, right? Which is really impressive. Like, I think the finals was not long. 3 of the games were like less than about 29 minutes or less, and then only game 1 was like close. So in terms of time, I think Cloud9 showed that they deserve to, like, all the respect that they were being given. I also really liked that they were willing to pick Olaf. They were willing to, like, show off the Poppy, which I don't even think Gen G was playing, which is, they invented Poppy jungle. So that's all good. The last thing I wanted to mention before I hand it off is that Emenes did not start well, but he did finish well. His LeBlanc definitely showed its class, bar a few mishaps, but he had a lot of pressure, even though his KDA wasn't impressive. I think that he did a good job of, like, showing that, like, he gives them more depth, but this guy needs more time. Just like Zen, they need more time in the oven, and if they get good coaching and a good team around them, Zen could be a truly great support in NA. He's already shown a very good first year.
Yeah. Before Mitchell gets in real quick, I just wanted to add on to with the Emenes thing. Like, and remember game 1 with Orianna, he was getting, they lane swapped, and he was just getting murked like crazy, and was just so behind.
About the lane swap.
Yeah, but look, he ended the game 6-4 and 11, and he was making some really good plays. And so even within that game, he did not tilt off the face of the planet, which I, again, think is a great sign, because he is a guy that was rumored to be kind of toxic and have weak mental. So the fact that he was able to come back in that specific game was really good. So I just wanted to add that real quick.
That is fair. He also had one of the most stereotypical mid laner first time walking into top lanes I've ever seen. Like, that was rough, man. But I'm glad he bounced back, because this guy has never done a lane swap on stage in his life, and it shows.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about that in the Discord and with each other. Like, you can't just go top lane and just play it and be like, it's fine, guys. Like, mid lane is like paradise compared to top lane. Top lane is miserable. Like, you get your wave frozen on you. You get junglers sitting in all 4 different bushes waiting to gank you. Like, Emenes has no idea. He's just like, I just farm, right? We're chilling. Like we don't have to worry. Kennan's ranged, I'm ranged. We're chilling. He just gets ganked. He's getting ultied. He's getting dumpstered on. But I mean, it kind of worked out because I mean, what ended up happening was River accidentally was taking all the kills on Sejuani. So even though Emenes was like getting killed over and over again, Licorice couldn't get any of the kills. His Kennen, I think, was honestly it was pretty rough. He was going for the team fight build, so he was building like a really early Morella Nomicon, and I felt like I don't know the Kennen just it was doing fine in laning phase. Like he was actually doing pretty well, like bullying the Olaf, or bullying in other games that he played it. But he couldn't translate it hard enough into the mid and late game for Licorice. Um, so I think that's something they can work on. But it is a good pick for them, and it's just a good pick in general. I think. Other regions are playing Kennen, but it was hard for them to translate. The Olaf though,
Yeah.
I was surprised how important the Olaf prio was, and I think Golden Guardians was not prepared for the Olaf prio. Um, like C9 was willing to just like pick it fairly early, and just blind it, and like I think that champion is not balanced. Oh my god, like I think we used to think of Olaf as like just a super hard lane bully and just like kind of like early game stuff. But no, he's kind of like a late game threat. Like he kind of is getting bullied sometimes early on and comes into two items and takes over team fights like completely on his own. So it's a thing that started in EU with Olaf. I expect this to stay a pretty prevalent pick going to MSI for the teams that want to play Olaf. Honestly, the champ's really easy to play too. So like Cloud9 showing that kind of diversity and understanding of the meta is pretty cool. Um, I also think just like yeah, diversity was the name of the game for Cloud9.
Yeah.
They were playing like a certain style in game 1 and game 2, a bit more scaling, a bit more slow, and then they had a close game 1, they lost game 2, and then they just switched gears completely game 3. They're like, "You know what? Screw this. We're going super hard early game." And we're going to show them like we don't want to lose early game against Golden Guardians, so we're going to double down and say we're really not losing early game against them. And they put on such a clinic in game 3 that was not close at all. Like they played the Lucian Nami, Elise, uh, Renekton Elise, like just full early game, even a LeBlanc. So I mean the thing that I'm most impressed by C9 is like I think they're not always the cleanest with all of their styles, but they can play so much different stuff. And that's what you get with a team that's been together for like a year, right? I mean, fun fact, Sven as support has a 100% win rate in LCS finals.
Wow.
So like this team is really nuts. And the fact that Golden Guardians formed this year and was able to take it that close to them means that they're also very good. Um, I really think that Cloud9 and Golden Guardians, they can get some stuff done at MSI this year. Like the fact that one team is surging super hard from a super fresh beginning, and Cloud9 has been together and has stuck around and has so much like stuff built up over the years, over time. This is pretty exciting time to be an LCS fan, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you gotta, I mean, even from like the tweets and stuff, and really just the demeanor of Golden Guardians, like, even though they lost, like, you could tell they were super encouraged and motivated by how they performed. Like, they showed a tremendous resolve against FlyQuest. They, again, like, were still competitive, even though it was 3-1 against Cloud9. Like, you could tell like through their tweets, they're ready, they're motivated, they're ready to scrim and get ready for MSI, and like they believe. That's, I think, a big part of it, is that they believe in themselves and that they can come together as a team with their style. I feel like they have an identity, they kind of know where their roles are at now, and so that's something to, even though it's not really something you see on paper, it's something that internally, as a non-visual thing, can be an advantage for them as they come in. And real briefly, like, because I know this is mainly an LCS podcast, but we talked a little bit how they'll do, so let's talk about thoughts on C9 Golden Guardians in MSI. Now that we know some of the teams that are coming into MSI, you guys can talk about some of the teams in the other regions that have been determined, but your thoughts on how they might do against at least who we think or know is going to be in MSI as of this point.
Yeah. So my thoughts so far is that I think, based off of the finals weekend, Golden Guardians is probably the better rep to send than FlyQuest, despite how close their series, right? Like Golden
Yeah.
Guardians could have lost 3-1, but the problem with FlyQuest in their last form, before the last time we saw them, was that they just played kind of back. They weren't that proactive anymore. Like Spica really lost his mojo, I guess. And they were just looking to hand stiff, I felt like. They picked comps that were a bit more passive, kind of like what we would associate old 100 Thieves with, right?
Yeah.
Golden Guardians, what they do is they play really hard. They play really aggressive. They play with a very good jungler who is tested now internationally. I mean, Spica is too, to some extent. But River has a longer history. So I think they should have a chance. But we should also keep in mind that, I mean, with the strength of teams in the early game, like T1's going to MSI, BLG's going. So there are there are going to be games where we try to be really strong early and we just get smacked. But
Yeah.
we might win an odd game, just like how last year EG historically beat T1, which is almost unheard of for an NA org to do. So I think it's exciting. We do have players on that team that actually, actually everyone on this team on Golden Guardians has played internationally except for Gory. So it's a pretty like a reasonable chance to do something. As for C9, I think we have a good chance against Europe. Same for Golden Guardians, but especially for C9, I feel like C9 has shown more class than pretty much any of the teams in terms of average level in LEC. I've watched almost all the LEC games, and like it'd be cool if BDS goes, right. G2 is already going. And if Vitality goes in that slot, like they did look disgustingly good last week,
Yeah.
but they could also be really bad depending on which one shows up. So I really want to see us stomp G2. I think that's something that NA has always at best gone like 1-1 with them in group stage, like TL versus G2, right? We've never gotten to stomp their number one team, and if we could do that, I call MSI a win.
That's a win. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, looking across the pond and stuff, like G2 is kind of falling off. I mean, I think they'll probably spike back up once because they're like, still in playoffs and it's just the best of 3 side. But once they get to best of 5s, I fully expect G2 to, rise up in stonks. But I don't know. So for some,
what doesn't matter.
yeah, for them it doesn't matter that much, right? Just for seeding, I think.
That's true.
For I guess some of the other regions, right? I think LPL we have BLG is in, right? And that's it.
JDG.
And JDG. Oh, okay, yeah.
JDG's in the
BLG and
finals,
JDG.
so,
Yeah, they just have to finals. And then T1 Gen G, and then LEC we're still deciding some of the lower regions. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say it, right? T1 they look a little mental boomed. Like there's a stat where they haven't won a finals in a long ass time. They've made almost every finals like that you can make possible, and just haven't been able to win it. So I mean, I expect T1 to be a monster in group stage. But hey, if we get Golden Guardians T1 in finals, I'm Golden Guardians all day. Like I'm like, let's DRX. That's kryptonite. You guys are so toast. Like Golden Guardians is about to win. MSI if they can make it there. I mean, it's gonna be really hard to make it there. But if we could just insert straight to finals, like whatever, just go T1 GGS, I think we win that. Forget about all the other stuff happening around it. I am excited to see these teams play internationally. The thing I am nervous about, of course, is like Emenes is a very contentious player. He's super new. Same with Gory, right? These are our mid laners. And I think one thing that happens in international events is mid diff is always super massive. Because it's not just mid lane, right? It's all the people passing through mid lane, the junglers passing through mid lane. So yeah, I hope we can keep it together mid, because the meta is also going to change rapidly, and Golden Guardians did not do well with the meta shift, and a lot of meta junglers got nerfed. We had some like bot lane changes coming in. We had some more changes in 13.8. So yeah, I just hope that like Golden Guardians can figure out the meta fast and quick. But they're the second seed, so they get to go through like a light play-in stage to warm up. Honestly, I think that's such a boon for Golden Guardians to go through play-ins and to, probably have some close teams against some lower seeded teams, and figure out the meta and then go from there. Yeah, so I mean, it's sad. Malphite's getting nerfed pretty hard, a lot of damage, and like God, Licorice was so crazy on Malphite. Like he single-handedly turned around like their entire weekend in Game 4, right, against FlyQuest. So yeah, I'm excited for these teams. I think it's kind of matching up well. Just Golden Guardians able to go through play-ins, C9 able to slot into group stage and just hit the ground running. And I wish the best for Emenes and Gory to like get to international and hopefully not get mid-diffed.
Yeah.
Well, in Emenes's case, I mean, he's been at the top of the ladder before, so like he's probably at least played against these players and like had somewhat positive experiences. I'm worried about Gory. He was like 6th, 7th best mid laner. Like he's not Vikla, where he was like maybe someday could be one of the best. Is like Gory just was not in the top echelon, right? So he was just getting schooled by these Korean mid laners. That's where I'm concerned. I'm hoping with River as back, who's like, you know, Korean killer, whatever, PSG Talon, the Flash World legacy of that region, maybe they have a chance, but that I am concerned about. I will want to add in though, thank you for bringing up that LCK finals thing. How many times are we going to repeat this endless cycle of X Korean team is the best by far? They're the best players in every role. They're going to destroy everything. And then they lose in the finals. And then we come back and we're like, oh, okay, this other top Korean team is going to be the
Yeah.
best by far. Like this time was the most egregious, I think, ever, where all 5 SKT members or T1 members were the number 1 all pro. And they're like, yep,
Yeah.
this is just the best team ever. And one cool stat that I Will Dominate brought up was that in the finals of LCK, when the finals was 2-0, the betting odds were 3.26 to 1.23 in SKT's favor to reverse sweep.
Wow.
And I'm just sitting there like, what kind of, it was 3.4 to 1.26. I'm like, what kind of insanity is there where another team's up 2-0? They actually looked pretty good in at least one of those games. And the odds are 3.4 to 1 in favor of Gen G, or in favor of T1 River sweeping. Like, it's just ridiculous. So, like, at some point, like, do we start having the conversation where T1 is definitely an elite team, right? They were the best all season, but like, they can't get across the finish line. And noticeably, like, Faker wasn't even the worst player in that finals. It was Zeus. Like, Zeus has not shown up even in the rest of the playoffs. He's had a lot of bad games, but in finals, he was getting gapped by Doran. Like, what? So that's our hopium. Let's maybe they think the finals of group stage or not group stage or brackets. I don't know. Maybe they just think that they're always in finals and we can beat them. And the other good news for us NA fans is that Gen.G is the only legacy top org in Korea that just continuously does bad internationally against like non-Korean teams. They also have done really well like last year and all the way up to semis. But like this org is the one that's been eliminated twice. At Samsung, they got eliminated in season 3 with Dade. And then, or is it season 4? Maybe it was season 4 with Dade at the helm.
One of those, yeah.
And then they got like they went like 1-5 or 2-4 as Gen.G in an RNG group before. Like this team is not good internationally. Even last year they were the best team by far and they got semis, right? Like that's technically bad. So we have a chance, guys. This is
hopium, baby.
This is the weakest they've ever been. They're gonna probably stomp one of our teams, but I just want one win.
And we don't worry about LPL. They don't exist. It's fine. Let's just
Who are they? Who are they?
Let's just focus
LPL
on
and MSI.
T1.
I mean, there's no RNG this year, so we might have a chance.
True.
It's true. Bin is the only RNG player to make it to MSI, so he's gonna carry on the legacy. I think it's funny if we talk a little bit about LPL. Is like Bin was like kind of getting flamed a lot of this season because there's like this rumor that his coach was like hates him because he refuses to play tanks. Like his coach was like actually wants to bench him and like wants to boot him from the team because he's just like, I'm just not gonna play tanks. Like you can't make me. I don't care. Malphite, you can buff him 20 more times. We're just not playing him. Don't care. And you know what? He shuts all of them up and he plays carries all the way. And now he's in the finals and he's qualified for MSI. I mean, I think a lot of people were expecting EDG like for the entire year was just smurfing, was insane, and they get completely like, you know, they lose to BLG. It was a 3-2, but it felt very BLG favored. But I've been wanting to say this for a bit, man. What is up with like Asian talent, dude? Like, so you have Gen G and freaking Ruler, their best player leaves, and they just have this guy Pays on Academy show up and just also be the best ADC. Like, I don't know. It's insane. You also have with EDG, even though they didn't qualify right, they lost their best player in Viper and they just get leave. And he's just also insane. Like, the talent pool is so deep in Korea, in China, that you lose your like best star player and you replace him with someone who looks almost as good or sometimes even better, right? So that is impressive. I will say, like, I just have to comment that, like, this Pays guy is super cracked and he's just a total nobody. He's completely random. So that's cool. Um, but yeah, for LPL though, I mean, they are looking pretty insane. I think JDG is like actually like a super team. Like we talk a lot about the super teams in years. And it's like, yeah, you know, super team, whatever. This is a super team for sure. You got Ruler, you got Knight. Um, well, that's Weibo, right? No, wait, who's JDG's mid laner? I forget. You
Mid
know,
laner?
yeah.
Right?
Oh, it is Knight. Okay, I said
Yep.
it. Never mind.
Regardless, the
Yeah.
other team's mid laner.
Yeah, and they got 369 and Kanavi and stuff like so.
Yep.
JDG is pretty cracked, but you know, from an NA perspective, we can dodge LPL and we can try and bully T1.
There we go.
LEC, they're like not even, you know, and it's fine. We'll just beat LEC. It's not a big deal,
That's
and we
right.
can just focus on beating T1, and we can just skip the LPL. It's
Easy.
fine. So we got a great path to MSI finals. 6A and Hui, they have 100% presence in MSI finals. So we could do this, guys. We could definitely do this. Like I think it's cool. Like CLG
Yeah.
is like kind of piecing out, and we have some of our legacy players, 6A and Hui, you know, bringing back the vibes, bringing back the energy, going to MSI. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say here except it's just a lot of copium and a lot of hopium. But
In
yeah.
defense of NA, we lost our top star. We lost Danny, and Kaori came in and he did better. So we also have talent. I mean, he's not starting anymore. He's
No.
playing like
He's
a second region in ERLs or
Yeah.
some shit now. But
Yeah.
like,
And he's losing.
you know, we didn't need that talent, right? We can just pull
Yeah.
it out from anywhere. Double came back after 2 years,
There you
top
go.
3. So I mean, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
We have talent.
Yeah.
We do have
Well,
the
let's
talent.
let's wrap this all up in a bow. And you know, one thing I kind of want to close with the finale of our split is that one, it was really a great split, honestly. Just from a viewer's perspective, I thought there was a lot of rejuvenation in the programming. Even though I didn't like every little segment, I did like the fact that there's a lot of really fun content, like especially with us getting to know the pros. Like I thought, if anything, to get a little more insight into the pros' personalities, having them on the cast, having them in these funny segments, like catching up with Double Lift or something like that, where they had all these different players. Like, it's just good entertainment. But really, at the end, I think, you know, the big kind of feel-good moment was Emenes up on stage and crying, and like the whole crowd started cheering his name. It was just like, Emenes. And, you know, this was a guy, again, that, whether it's true or not, rumored that, you know, he was this kind of player that was just super hard to work with, very bad teammate. And, you know, whether, like I said, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the perception you have. And the fact that he comes in as like with the least amount of games in the LCS and then to win
9 games, bro.
to play 9
Yeah.
games to winning the champion. Granted, he has a great team and a great organization with good systems, right? But it was such a feel good moment for him. And you could tell how grateful he was for this kind of second chance, really to redeem himself. He's not taking it for granted. He's really just relishing it all. And, you know, by him just saying C9 life, you know, C9 Emenes for life. Like he's like so grateful for the chance that he had. So I just wanted to close on that final note as we wrap up the LCS in a nice little bow. And although we were on this high of like really great split, great finals, unfortunately, you know, in NA that couldn't last because we've had a series of news that's been happening that kind of has brought this cloud of just doom and gloom. You know, we've mentioned it before, but, you know, CLG gone, the rumors of TSM possibly leaving or at least really cutting back their investment in League of Legends. And then we get news, you know, not too long ago that Jackie Felling, the LCS Commissioner, is stepping down due to health concerns. And, you know, obviously that's very important, but again, just a snowballing of news. And then our GOAT, well, one of the GOATs, you know, Bjergsen retiring again, right? Like it's all of these things, one right after the other. And I feel like just with the timing of it, it can really get kind of this effect of doom and gloom. And then finally, just the added rumors that, you know, 100 Thieves and Dignitas were or are at least looking to sell their spot in the LCS. Again, not confirmed, but just these rumors will add on to that snowball of like, where's the LCS going? What's going to happen? You know, is it going to be good or bad? So let's unpack that a little bit. What are your thoughts on all the news? You could speak to any of those specifically, but what are your thoughts going
Let's
on? Yeah.
start one at a time. Maybe we just talk about Bjergsen leaving. I think
Yeah,
that's
let's
the
start
first
with
bit
that.
of
The
news
GOAT.
that kind of
Let's
came
pay him
out.
some
Yeah.
tribute. So go ahead, Kevin.
I mean, all right. Long story short, this guy had the most dominant run of any singular player in NA when he came into the scene. Like he defined what an import is, and we judged every import after that to that standard. Like if you want to be a great import, like you were always just like, were you better than Bjergsen's entry, right? A lot of people weren't here for when he came in season end of season 3, but mostly like his big seasons were 4 and onward. This man like legitimately was, getting pentakills on Nidalee. Like he was destroying people single-handedly and like defining what a mid laner should be. And he really raised the level of our region. Like who was our strongest mid laner before Bjergsen joined?
It was Reggie.
Was it Reggie? Yeah, it was like
Yeah,
I'm trying to think. Reggie was
Reggie.
the top team,
Yeah, and like
maybe
Man
high.
Cloud or something. Yeah,
It
Man
was like
Cloud.
higher Reggie, right? And like they were good in their own ways, but like they just weren't world class, right? Reggie got absolutely destroyed world internationally. High was at least decent. And
Yeah.
so Bjergsen has defined a whole legacy. Like I would argue that some of the mid laners that were brought up afterward would never exist in NA if we didn't have like at least one respectable international mid laner. Like, yes, he only showed up big maybe once or twice ever in his career internationally, but like it's just hard for NA players to do that. Like only C9 and like maybe that one Liquid roster that beat IG has ever done that for real. So I wouldn't hold it against him. I think he's a legend. And in his retiring video, he said that this is like his real step back. Like he doesn't want to do anything league related. He's just taking a break from everything. And I think it's good for him. Like honestly, the space seems kind of sad right now. So maybe he just wants to live his life for a while and then see if he wants to come back, right? Last time, according to him, he didn't really retire. He was just changing to another natural step in the league like atmosphere. He was still competing just as a coach. And like I think that showed because he came back a year later, right? So he didn't have the retiring mindset. We might not see him for a while, but I'm happy for him. He deserved it. Like this guy used to be the skinny little like 16, 17-year-old when he joined the league. He was bullied a lot and he's really the success story that like Double is also a super ideal success story of like what esports can do for someone. So I'm super happy we saw this guy grow up together, have his really bad beard, facial hair stuff going on,
Yeah.
and all of that. And I think I wish that he could end his career on a win, like the 2020 run, which was like a miracle run. But he deserves it. So I hope that people don't hold it against him because this roster wasn't going to win with even like a really good player there. Like you throw Knight or Chovy there, I'm like, I don't know if they can win everything. They might be able to win LCS. That's about it.
Yeah, it's sad to the video especially that Bjergsen put out. It was. I mean, a lot of old OG fans like knew his backstory and stuff, but to really hear him say it, even
Yeah.
now, like as an adult, to say that League of Legends like saved his life and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in more ways than one, right? Not just for like motivation, but also just like um I don't know, it's like something to get up in the morning to go do. Um a lot of uncertainty for him as well. Like he was saying he never expected this to go that far, right? He went all in on something, back in 10, 12 years ago that we would have no idea that it would have turned out to be like this,
Right.
right? Big stadiums all across the world, people showing up to see people play. Um, and he became, yeah, one of the greatest, not just in LCS, but like kind of in world history, right? When you think of how LCS really started, League of Legends started in North America. He's one of like the first ever to be considered great. Um, so it's really hard to see him go, and he was saying that like it's he couldn't live and breathe League of Legends anymore, right? Like the day-to-day monotony, the grinding, the just constantly thinking and talking about League of Legends as your
Yeah.
life. He couldn't do it anymore. And I mean, you could tell, right? Like even from last year on Team Liquid, it's like we were all noticing that like he's just not the same player.
Right.
He is not making the right plays, like his mechanics are off. And that's just what League of Legends is, right? You have to play all the time. You have to be up to date with all the new trends and all the new stuff. And yeah, we could feel it. I think everybody could feel it when he came back from coaching. And um it's good that he retired. It's good that he took his own way out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's emotional. I wish that he came back and he just played great and amazing, but that's not the world we live in. And um, I think to contrast, like Doublelift is on his team. He's been one of Doublelift's teammates for a long time. Bjergsen and Doublelift, they're either playing on the same team and we're the best team, or playing against each other and we're of two different halves of the LCS's best teams.
Hmm.
So Bjergsen's gone, Doublelift is here, but you know what? Doublelift is back, and it does feel like he is living and breathing League of Legends, right? When
Hmm.
he's not
Hmm.
playing, he's on a co-stream. When he's not on the co-stream, right? He's his mechanics are pretty solid on the LCS stage. So, um, we can still keep one goat. You know, we still got
Yeah.
one left, and we're in the process of making new goats. I mean, like just think of Sven and Blabber, right? These guys are actually in contention for like the next tier of like legendary goats.
Yeah.
Sven has like gone under the radar as being really insane. He's won multiple championships on C9. He's won in two different roles now, multiple times. Like this guy is a legend. And then Blabber, this is his fourth title. I think he's tied with like Smithy now. Like one more title for Blabber, and he is just like a top 3 goat, right under Bjergsen and Doublelift. So Bjergsen is leaving and it's gone. It's sad, but we are getting, you know, some pretty solid, you know, people to fill in his shoes. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, we'll
I
work that hard.
I think again, like all the things you mentioned, the fact that he was such a driving force in the LCS, like him and Doublelift, like having, thank goodness, honestly, that Doublelift is still here or like is back, because it would be really, Kevin's crossing his fingers, next week, Doublelift, my farewell, right? Like, nah, I hope not, because like, I don't think so, because of what you said, Mitchell, is that it still seems like he's breathing League of Legends. He still seems to really have a desire for the game. But, you mentioned it, you could tell with Bjergsen, honestly, in just the fact that he wasn't really, I don't know, growing as a player, like to learn the new styles or the new champions, or really getting it at that level. And Bjergsen even mentioned that it's like it's constantly adapting and really thinking forward and having to play forward. And you see that in a lot of, the younger players who are still hungry or still in their career that are really trying to be at the top of their game. Bjergsen wasn't at that level. He could still kind of hold his own, at least in lane sometimes, like with the champs that he was familiar with, but you could tell he just wasn't moving forward in his gameplay. And I think that's a good call when you know yourself that you're not necessarily improving. Then, as a competitor, that's the whole drive. That's what makes it fun, is when you're improving and trying to grow and actually stay the best and be the best. And the fact that he's stepping away, like kind of away from the scene for who knows how long. I mean, he did kind of leave a window open that, he may at some point come back to some kind of league or anything like that. We don't know for sure, but I think it's good for him to kind of just reset mentally. What I will say, the biggest thing that I liked from him was just I think he really demonstrated, and we don't know all the behind the scenes stuff, but he really demonstrated what it was like to be a professional League of Legends player, where his mental just seemed cool. Like no matter what, like they lost, you see him in interviews, he kind of talks about just matter-of-factly the things that they didn't do right, what he needed to do. From all accounts, it seemed like Bjergsen was a great teammate to have, just always being professional. And so for me, that was a great example that he set. And hopefully players have, and I think players have kind of modeled that and taken some of those things away from that. But it is very sad to see him go, and wishing him all the best. Bjergsen, if you're listening to this, which I'm sure you probably are, on your vacation, we just we just want to wish you well, my friend. Thank you for all the years of awesome League of Legends play. But we look forward to what you have next in the future. All right, next doom and gloom news, I guess. Do we want to talk about the teams, or do you want to talk about Jackie Felling first?
I feel like Jackie's gonna be pretty quick, so we can talk about her.
Okay, so let's talk Jackie Felling again. Stepping down, we don't know how much or how little she had actual impact on what we saw in the improvements with LCS. But again, the fact that she's stepping down. That's the problem, kind of, right? We have no idea what she did. I have no idea what she did. Exactly. So talk about that a little bit, Kevin, if you got, anything to say about that.
Yeah, the good news is when she stepped in, I think that LCS started to change. I believe she stepped in a year or two ago,
A year and a
end of
half,
Year and
yeah.
a half.
year and a half.
She started
And
2022, yeah.
yeah, so I think that the league started going in the right direction. Like we had better skits, we had, slightly more attention to like just listening to the feedback of the community. Honestly, that's just the general gist, right? They didn't always hit, but they were trying stuff. Now she's also been behind the wheel, during the time when we have the weird schedule change. I like Thursday, Fridays, but like clearly the viewership didn't. So there's that problem. I mean, honestly, the real answer is TSM's been bad. That's when our viewership's been dropping. I think
Yeah.
is the
Ooh.
a bigger driving force. But either way, she's had a mixed record, but which commissioner in any sports league hasn't? So I'm fine with her performance. I think she's done above what we expected, better than Chris Greeley, the one before her.
Right.
She's had health issues, so honestly, I don't even for like a couple months now, so we don't know what it is. I'm not gonna pry into that, but I don't know what she's been responsible for this year. So once again, it's hard to know who's the actual person that's responsible for all the decisions, good and bad. I wish we had more visibility into that. It's been better than it is in the past, but because in the past we just didn't know, right? Like it was just all figureheads, and now we have a few more people who are like maybe taking responsibility, but even them, like it's not as good. I wish her the best. I don't really have any like bad feelings toward the commissioner because I think the league is being better. But if the league dies under the next commissioner, like it's also just a result of just Riot as a whole, not Jackie Felling, Riot as a whole, esports mismanaging the product and like them trying to turn the lead, but too late. So I hope she doesn't get scapegoated, but she also doesn't necessarily like. I don't think she was the most impactful one. She just wasn't bad. So that's
Yeah.
good enough.
Yeah. I I think that like with the commissioners we've had in the past and stuff, um, it's funny. Every time we say commissioner, I always think of like Batman, like Commissioner Gordon, and like they're like the second. I don't know. It's that's a totally random tangent. Anyways, um, I I really hope that in the future for our next commissioner that we can actually like know what they do and we can actually like have them more involved. Like Jackie Felling, honestly, I knew we got a new commissioner in 2022, and I knew that they were doing stuff. I didn't even know her name until like she announced her retirement. I still don't know what exactly she does or what literal changes she made, and I had never even seen her interact with social media up until I see her commenting on her own Reddit post for retirement. So in the future for commissioners, I think Kevin summed up nicely, like, kind of the sentiment of her leaving in her career. But for the future, I want to see more of the commissioner. I want to see their face and I want to see words come out of their mouth and them telling me what they want to do, what they think of the LCS and what the future is. I want to see them on Reddit posts. I want to know that they understand League of Legends. Like, I think a lot of the times we have, especially in LCS, we have figureheads that like they do treat it as a business product and they treat it as like an entertainment industry, right? And they have insight in those aspects. But League of Legends is very unique. It's a very different esport. It's a very unique game. Like I want to see somebody who clearly knows that they understand League of Legends, they understand the game, and they hopefully have played it and can play the game, and like they can connect with the players, they can connect with the audience, because like that's been the real problem with the LCS is just like the disconnect between the leadership and just like the fact that like the community is like they're players. Like we're a bunch of video game nerds and players. Like you guys like we just haven't been able to connect these two things.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard. Just get a freaking nerd up there to talk with the players, to
Yeah.
talk with the audience, to see what's good for us. I mean, we're starting to head in a good direction for this year. I mean, a lot of hits, a lot of misses, but I mean, I thought that this year was, 2023 spring was pretty solid for a broadcast update. And I hope we can continue forward. And the only way to continue forward, right, is to just get better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I guess good luck. Hope your health is better. League is hard, it's rough on the health. So
I'm sure
I
she's
hope
listening to
wish
this
her the best.
podcast as well.
Yeah.
As she's
So
it's
yep. Thanks,
but
Jackie.
thanks, Jackie.
Shoot us a message in
Yeah.
Discord.
Yep. Keep
to
us posted.
say your farewells.
Keep us posted. We'd like to take over if possible. If we can, as a
we
trio.
got a lot of great ideas.
Yeah, a lot of great ideas over
we're
here.
gonna be replacing the entire broadcast. We're gonna be casting every game.
I mean, I know we might not be the only one saying it, but we've made a lot of suggestions that have been taking place that have made the broadcast better. And I'm just saying, we have some good ideas over
out. Our suggestions have actually happened.
I don't want to toot our own horns here, but
yeah,
yeah,
it's amazing. So
well, yeah. Hopefully we'll see
for future years. Listen to us.
Exactly.
That's really all it is.
That's all it is. But yeah, so look, I know I had read a thing that said that the finals viewership was like down like 100K from last time. And I will say, being there, man, there were a lot of empty seats, which was kind of surprising to me. That's my hopium or my copium is that it was Easter. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I would be able to still go because, family obligations and stuff like that. I was like, I didn't even realize it's on Easter. But luckily I was still able to go. I don't know who scheduled that, but that's not a good move. Let's not do that again. But again, like, I will say that it was still a great energy, great thing to have there. But I think the biggest thing, again, when I was there was that there was a TSM booth, and I really wanted to get like TSM merch because of just like where everything's going and the rumors. And I was like, man, I want to get me a jersey or something because I was a big fan of TSM for a really, really long time. And I know they're kind of a meme now. And honestly, I loved it. I think people were really meaning it when they were chanting TSM in the stadium because it was like, this might be the last time they're actually here. So it felt very like sentimental. So I was trying to find merch and they weren't even selling merch at their booth. And so let's kind of dig into this now. Like again, CLG gone, rumors with TSM cutting back, possibly leaving, rumors of 100 Thieves, Dignitas trying to sell their spot. What do you guys think about this? And I've mentioned this before. Can we find talent? We got Energy coming in now, right? Like that's part owned by Shaq. So is that a good thing, bad thing? I don't know. But let me get your thoughts on the team orgs shuffle up here.
Yeah, so I mean, if they're not selling, even trying to make money at the event, that's probably a death knell for like just their commitment, right? They're probably just like trying to see where the LCS pans out, stuff like that. I think the rumors about 100 Thieves and Dignitas potentially trying to sell is more like them testing the market. I think that's probably even potentially Hopium a good news for the price. I think what they're seeing from that is they've heard rumors or just heard from their contacts that like, hey, when CLG sold, it was worth X dollars. We only paid Y dollars, like 10 million or something, right? So we could just sell, recoup our losses, or maybe even make a small gain. And these times, like that's a big thing, a big W to put on your books, right? So in Dignitas's case, very obvious, right? This org has traditionally just like killed talent.
They've been checked out.
Yeah. So like, have they even spent that much? Like maybe on the Jensen roster, maybe, but like, have they really spent that much in the history of their time here?
Yeah. They had the historical like biggest contract fail with the Hooney 2.5 million contract.
Yeah, I remember that. Was it Dignitas?
Contract was EG.
No, it was Dignitas. It was franchise started. They signed Dignitas for like 2.3 million.
That's right.
Yeah. And everyone was like,
what? They obviously don't pay attention to the games.
Yeah.
Uni has the best agent of all time, by the way.
Yeah, he does.
He so much money on some games. And like, he's fun, but yeah, I agree. Okay, that's true. They spent more money on that one contract that 1 year than they did on all the
Maybe that's what doomed them. Maybe they just took a hit after that because of that.
Yeah.
So Hooney ruined Dignitas is what we
yeah, that's exactly it.
Let's go.
So Dignitas, not surprising. They're a very historical org. They've been around for a long time. They were around in StarCraft as well. Like it's a historical org, but they just haven't done much. Like their most iconic roster was like the I'm a Cutie Pie one, right? And after that, like they just haven't done the due diligence to get good players when they do have money, or the team building needed when they do have like an idea. Like they've gotten not bad players. If you look at the history of Dignitas, they've had good players walk through the doors. It's just almost always underperformed, except that one split where Dardoch was like popping off with the roster. They were doing well, and then they benched him. And I was like, all right, well, cool.
Classic.
Excellent. Or they benched their mid laner. Either way, they just screwed up everything. So that's fine. The concerning thing is 100 Thieves. They're supposed to be a merchandising org. People are like, oh, they can still sell merch. I'm like, how do you sell merch if you scale back your big teams? Like, think about it, guys, for just 1 second. Who's going to be buying at least League of Legends merch for 100 Thieves? So either they're overstating how good the merch is for them, because why would you pull out otherwise?
Mm-hmm.
Or the deal for selling the spot is just so lucrative right now that it's just worth it for them. The last thing I'll end on is other orgs joining is a good thing in my mind. If we lost an endemic org like C9, like TL or TSM, right? The ones who just were raised here and didn't sell all of their roots, like obviously they sold to venture capital, but they didn't sell all their roots away and like signed to like Peak 6 or whatever it was with EG. That's a big loss. We lose a lot of team building, good, like healthy-ish environment, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
With 100 Thieves, 100 Thieves and Dictas and CLG and maybe TSM leaving, if we can just get one or two really good investors who were pushed out in the beginning that like really do care about esports, like NRG might be one of them, right? They might
Mm-hmm.
have the right tools. They've been in esports for long enough. They really care. They need to prove it. Like I think we will have a better space because there was just too much hype before. It's like all these people who wanted to grift off of the league and wanted to just get the next, like, basically esports was like Bitcoin before Bitcoin,
It's like a bubble.
or crypto before
Yeah.
crypto, right? Like everyone thought it was going to be easy money, and it's not. So the people join now are probably not thinking it's easy money if they're going to be paying more than the 10 million from before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It
we're
might
in a
still fail, but we
downturn.
need this kind of
Yeah.
change to happen in the league.
I mean, we've just been in a rebuild, right? We were talking about last year at the end when we went 3-15 at Worlds, burn it all down, and this is kind of it's been very unexpected, right? The type of burning it down for us
Yeah.
is happening, but it's not what we thought it was going to be, right? It started with the format changes. We didn't think that was a possibility. We thought it was going to be very like team and player focused and salary focused, but it has been all that, right? A lot of teams, 100 Thieves especially, right? They cut down on their staff, and we know from Double F personally that like all of their salaries are much lower than they would have been just a year ago.
Yeah.
So, 100 Thieves themselves have cut down. Organizations across the board have cut down. Like, I mean, we are such a far cry from 2021. Yeah, when we spent $10 million for
Yeah.
perks,
Uh-huh.
right? To come in for a year and leave. And yeah, we're just so far away from that. Like, it's only 2 years, but that's the bubble. It has popped for
Yep.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm bummed. Like Dignitas leaving is kind of like, it sucks because they are an OG org, they're a classic, but they've never done anything. We've always blamed their management style or their coaching style to not really be able to take good players and make a good team, right? Like they buy so many names, they buy so many people, and they just never do anything interesting. Like I don't think they've ever done anything interesting in playoffs pretty much at all. I don't even know if they've won a playoff series. Maybe one, maybe two, I don't know.
Dang, that's
Like in
bad.
their entire career, like it's not a lot. I think 100 Thieves though, that is sad because I mean, they made 3 finals in a row. This is the first finals they missed in a long time. Even when they joined franchising, they made finals in their first split. Like this is a team that has actually had a very high success rate in the LCS. So if they're leaving, that's a big bummer. They're a pretty big brand. They have a very unique brand as well. I mean, they have one of the most iconic players on their roster, Double If. So I don't want to see 100 Thieves gone because they actually try. They actually do things right. They had the signing for Papa Smithy as well for his entrance into GM. Um, yeah, I don't want 100 Thieves to leave. I mean, I don't want Bjergsen to leave too. But like, hey, if money is talks and you gotta go, you gotta go. I think the good news, the non-Doom take is, I mean, we had Mr. Beast last year on the broadcast for Worlds. We had one of Mr. Beast's friends, who I
Yeah.
forgot already, on the broadcast.
Carl.
Carl?
Carl, there it
Shout
is.
out to Carl, by the way. He took a
Shout
picture with
out
my
to
son.
Carl. Yeah, thanks for watching,
Uh,
buddy. He was in the LCS finals. He's one of Mr. Beast's friends. Like, I hope we get a Mr. Beast team. I mean, it seems like the writing's on the wall, right? Like, we're probably gonna get that. So that's a plus. Energy is returning to LCS. Actually, they were in LCS for people who don't remember.
Yeah.
They didn't have the greatest time, but hey, Impact was actually on their roster for a little bit. So, maybe Energy can do something. But I do think that this is just, yeah, these are all symptoms of the burning it down.
Yeah.
We're not doing well as a region for a long time. The money was huge, the performances were not. The players and the sentiments, it wasn't ideal. So it's this is like darkest before the dawn, or another Batman reference, right? Like we are
He's on a Batman kick today.
we are yeah, we are, you know,
Nice.
we gotta bleed a little bit before we can heal and become better.
I can imagine the Mr. Beast video now. It's like, I saved 100 nerds from being jobless or something like that.
True. Yeah.
That'd be a
Yeah.
great video.
More than
Yeah.
100 too. Yeah, we got all the.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're right. Like this is my positive take on it. It's what you said, the burning it all down. This is it, right? Like this is the bubble that is burst. Because honestly, those ridiculous salaries, we knew that was ridiculous. We knew for like, you know, what we were paying them and like the return that it was getting was not going to be good. And people were jumping in on this, you know, bandwagon who maybe didn't really know the nature that well of esports. You know, top that with the FTX investment and partnership. Like, oh, you think all signs are pointing towards like LCS League being like a premier type thing. And, you know, I'm not saying all of it is the FTX boom, but for sure that had a big part of it as well. You know, the collapse with TSM, and they were also partnered with LCS. Like that has to hurt financially, no matter what PR statements they put out there. That is not good for orgs, for LCS. They're taking a financial hit on that. And so what I like, at least from it burning down, if this is the worst of that, you know, where, you know, possible some orgs leave in and maybe we get new orgs, but, you know, coming off of this really good spring split, like maybe it gets better from here, because now we are kind of reset. Salaries aren't ridiculous. Like they're competitive, but players are probably getting compensated, you know, properly for what they do. And that coupled with starting to build their brands as far as LCS segments where you get to know them personally, it's coming back to that idea of like, let's get to know these players. Because like you said, like we come from a world where it's like we want to know the personalities, like as goofy, as nerdy as they are. Like that's what makes it enjoyable. Like we feel like we have a personal connection. And honestly, when I met Turtle and, you know, all these pros and ex-pros at the event, even Sneak and Meteos had a line that was just crazy. Like they're not even playing anymore. That just shows like how much attachment we as fans have towards the players. And so I think this is a good direction. And so that's my hopium, is that if this is rock bottom, then it's not so bad, because we are definitely in the right direction. And so I'm excited that that's where it is. Fun other side fact is that there was only one jersey left that was still available for sale, and that was Dignitas. And I was not going to buy a Dignitas jersey. No way. I really wanted a Golden Guardians one, but I waited too long. And of course, it was all sold out because they won, and, you know, whatever. I still want to get a Golden Guardians jersey because I think they've definitely gotten a lot more fans. But any other final thoughts as we begin to wrap things up? Anything you guys want to mention? Wow, I think that's the most silent we've had this whole season.
Yeah.
That's great. Wow.
Well, yeah. I guess I hope for the future. I don't know. It's hard to all put in words. Like we've all been following this here on this podcast, and a lot of people in the community, like you see them like on Reddit and Twitter and stuff, and in Twitch chat. Like there have been people who've been following this like their entire, like the entire existence of League of Legends have been following this, and like it's crazy that like League of Legends started here in LCS, and now it's like it's the first to die here. Like it has gotten so massive in every other region. Like China is probably one of like the biggest come up stories for like League of Legends. Like it started with 2018, like Invictus Gaming actually winning a title, and then everything we've heard about LPL since then has just been them on a huge glow up, just being like the game is just the most popular thing out there. Same with like Korea, right? Like I mean, they were dominant for a long time, and like yeah, the game is just massive there. Like people, like fans are buying trucks to send to headquarters. Like that is crazy, dude. That's
you know
when
you made it then. Yeah.
That's when you know the game is huge. Like what the hell? And then like you hear about other smaller regions, right? Like Brazil. Brazil is so much worse than NA. Like not worse than other regions. They're worse than NA by a dramatic amount. And their player base is massive. Their fan base is huge.
Yeah.
Like it's it's not even about results sometimes, right? It's just about the personality.
Mhm.
And I'm excited. Yeah, Meteos was saying this on the co-stream, and I totally agree. Like, he's been on teams where, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you could replace one player or a guy here, and maybe you could be a slightly better team. But like, you don't want to play with that person. You want to play with your friends, even if you're a slightly worse team, right? You'll be greater than the sum of your parts if you play with your homies, you play with your friends, and that's like the intimate personality thing that we started to lose. Like, we turned into more of a generic sports
Mhm.
scene where it's like, just replace one guy, maybe we'll get better international results, blah blah blah. Like, thinking about just like the number crunching of like who's got the best stats in the game and what are our best percentage odds to like get a victory here and there. Like, I think we need to go back towards like,
We need to go
Emenes,
back
right?
to
Like,
no. We need to go back to gaming houses. Let's go.
yeah,
Just
I mean,
kidding.
that's what C9, they still
Right?
live in gaming houses. C9's been living in game houses since their beginning, right? But like, why is Emenes such a success story? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, he was good, and yeah, he had a lot of promise, but he also had a lot of like,
Yeah.
negatives too.
Negativity,
Is
yeah.
because he spoke to Blabber, and like, we saw in interviews where Blabber and Emenes connected. They like
Mhm.
chatted, and like they felt a vibe, and they're like, yeah, I think we could work well together. Like, we seem chill. And then they come on, and it's like they're friends. Like, they're hugging on stage, they're
Yep.
memeing with each other, they're like, you know, like that's like the kind of energy that we need. Like, you look at BDS also, like, they're just a bunch of like, they look like they're just a bunch of friends. They do all their weird skits at the beginning before they get to the LEC match, right?
Yeah.
I just have to think back to like Team Liquid. They really like screwed themselves when they got rid of Xmithy for
Mm.
Broxa for the idea of more international success,
Yeah.
when it's no one on their team knew Broxa. None of them are friends with him. No one to talk to them. It seemed like Steve made a decision to get Broxa without informing the rest of his team, without informing Doublelift. And he was upset because Doublelift and Xmithy are great friends. Like, I hope we can get to like personalities or what they're defining LCS. Like, it's the people and it's the friendships of the people. That's why we love Sneaky Meteos. They haven't been pros for hella long,
I know.
but they almost get more views than any other streamer when they're
Mhm.
co-streaming out there, right?
Yep.
Like, so that's that's it,
That was
We
great, man.
personality,
I like
people,
it.
friendships. Let's not make it into a generic corporate business where we're just churning out numbers and results.
Go
Like,
back to the roots, man.
yeah, go back to it's love. Love
It's
is the
love.
answer.
That's
Love is the
the
secret
answer.
secret
That's the
ingredient.
answer.
Yes,
Oh
the
gosh.
secret ingredient, the crab and patty secret formula
I
is
mean,
Mhm.
I
love.
agree, right? The love of the
Yeah.
players is what keeps things going. Like, it's the same reason why like T1's still so well loved, despite like all their ups and downs. Like, their fans love them more than anything else, right? Like, yeah, I mean they're still making finals, but relatively speaking, they're doing well. So we need that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Faker, I mean, Faker, he gave up all the money in the world because he loved being on SKT, on T1.
Mhm.
Like, that's what we need more of, right? Like, when Bjergsen, he left TSM, it was like, yeah, I mean, TSM was kind of a crap org, but also like it felt like that was the end. He left TSM and he was never the same again. Um,
That's where he
yeah,
grew up. Yeah.
don't give it up for money, right? Perks, he left G2 for $10 million and he just hasn't been the same ever
Yeah.
since. Don't give it for the money. Do it for the love. Do it for the
For the
friendships,
love of the game, for
for the
friendship.
love of the game, love of the people. Because
Well, they'll have to do it now that the money is gone.
Yeah,
the
I
money's
mean,
kinda
they got no
gone now, right?
choice, so
Maybe it's a good
Yeah.
thing.
it's got to be
It'll
for the
like,
love now.
I'm doing it for love, and it's like you had no other choice, bro.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Starving
like
esports player.
I
Yeah.
like closing on that sentiment. It kind of brought me down memory lane. And honestly, we've kind of been saying that in just different forms. But yeah, that's what makes League, or what made the beginnings of League so special to a lot of us longtime fans, is that it did feel very personal. Because we can kind of relate to that. Like, we play this game with friends. Like, we play this game, like, we might not be the best, especially on Clash teams. But whatever, man, it's fun, like it's, your friend's going to int and you get on him for that because that's what he does. But I'm not speaking about myself here, but I'm just saying.
No.
So anyways,
Never
let's wrap it up in that nice warm feeling. But thanks again to Kevin and Mitchell for sharing their wise thoughts. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.